Hey, what's up? I'm Channel Pup Fanboy Supervillain, and today I'm going to be giving you my full thoughts on the closed beta test for Sonic Racing Crossworlds. If you love Sonic, you are in the right place. Subscribe for more Sonic goodness. And if you're already subscribed but want to find a way to support me further, well, you're in luck. The link to the Patreon page is in the description below. All support is hugely appreciated. Thank you very much. So Sonic Racing Crossworlds is obviously incredibly exciting because it seems to be leaving no stone unturned in terms of trying to be the definitive Sega Sonic racing game. We had Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which focused on transforming vehicles, and then we had Team Sonic Racing, which focused on the team mechanics. This game here seems to be factoring in all of those different mechanics into one massive de facto Sonic racing title, even incorporating the extreme gear from Sonic Riders into its gameplay. So I was incredibly excited to try this out. The game obviously releases later this year, but PS5 players could sign up for a closed network beta test, giving us perhaps our best taste of things to come. We were basically given a small chunk of the game to play for 48 hours, and then a little survey at the end of it, which I'm hoping everybody did, because that is the whole point of this beta test. And I do just quickly want to note, yes, some of what I say in this might sound a bit more nitpicky than usual, but when a company releases a beta test for an upcoming project, it is the single most helpful thing you can do. Note down every single grievance, big and small, because in this development stage, they can actually do something about it, and even just the little things can really elevate the overall experience. So I'm going at this with a different approach to what I would with a game review. I'm leaving no stone unturned here. Even if it doesn't impact the overall gameplay experience, if there is a grievance, I'm gonna address it. Because I know that this fan base in particular can get very protective when it comes to negativity. We're all very quick to look on the bright side, but when it comes to a closed beta test, just glazing this thing and being quote-unquote grateful isn't actually going to help. It completely defeats the object. This isn't a present, this is a way of gaining valuable player feedback. So all I'm saying is I hope you folks are being honest and don't get defensive, because that's just ridiculous. That's not even what Sega wants at this point. So, how was it? Well, there was a lot that I really enjoyed about the Sonic Racing Crossworlds beta test, but there was also a surprising amount that dragged the experience down, and after 2 days of gameplay, the cracks definitely started to add up. Some of my issues with this will likely just boil down to this specific mode, which is included in the closed beta test, which is World Play. These being just quick races online with complete randomers from around the world and 12 races on the track. If the server doesn't fill up, you get bots. However, I didn't see any bots on the second day of play. This was a very popular closed beta test. And that's the chunk of the game that you get here, is that World Play feature. There's no option for offline play or creating your own custom games. They're saving that for the final product. So you only really get one specific part of what this game really has to offer. As a network test, the experience was mostly fine. I didn't experience any performance issues, and the game ran at a silky smooth 60 FPS. However, I was thrown out of a few games. It happened more often than I would like. Now, in terms of just basic racing, the controls are a little different from previous Sega racing titles, with the controls being mapped to the face buttons upon launch. I'm not 100% sure why that's the default, as I don't know anyone that didn't just change the controls back to what they were in the previous games, which is an option, which is good. I guess there's some versatility for people that are used to other racing titles, but starting you off on this feels a little weird. In terms of the general racing function, players of the previous Sega racing titles will feel right at home here, as mechanically this is almost identical to Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. Drifting and stunts give you boosts, and your vehicles will transform depending on your route. Just like in Transformed, that is a welcome return. There have been some slight tweaks, however, some good, some not. First of all, drifting and boosting feels as good as before, and the UI gives you a better sense of visual feedback than in previous titles. You can get a sense for just how much boost you're building up through drifting. When in the flight formation, you can now drift vertically as well as horizontally, which is a huge improvement on the flight controls from Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. That being said, there have also been some noticeable downgrades. Transitioning into flight formation doesn't feel as seamless as it did in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. You can't do air tricks as you enter the formation, and if memory serves, you can't realign yourself with the right analog stick like you could in Transform either, which is a disappointing downgrade. The boats have also taken a bit of a hit. Boats can no longer drift. Instead, the drift button charges a jump. Now, the idea of jumping in the boats would be cool in a devoted boat mode, and turning is still very easily doable by letting go of the accelerator. However, this is quite an abrupt change in control philosophy in very short bursts. Just when I feel like I've gotten the hang of the boats, suddenly I'm in a car again, meaning I never quite felt like I'd fully gotten the hang of the boats and their very different control philosophy. Another issue is just how much speed you lose when you go off course. Now look, I get it, you do want to punish the player for going off course, and lots of racing games do that. Previous Sega racing games do this too, but these don't feel correctly tuned. See, usually you gradually drop speed depending on how long you're off course. This accounts for simple accidents and allows good recovery time. In Sonic Racing Crossworlds though, if you so much as have one wheel touch a bit of grass for even half a second, your speed is cut to absolute minimum near instantly, giving the player almost no window for recovery. I think this just needs to be retuned because it was really frustrating. So the big new feature for this one is the Crossworlds. Players can warp to different racetracks in real time. It's really exciting and keeps the race varied. At first. That being said, the novelty of this feature sadly wore off on me after a few races. So the way this works is that in the second lap, 2 lanes with 2 portal rings open up, giving you the choice of which portal you'll take. One portal will have the Crossworld clearly visible in it, and the other will be purely random. It's the illusion of choice though, as I did notice that as time went on, most players were just choosing the random portals after people were familiar with the other Crossworlds. So what's happening here is that the race is refreshing itself with every single lap. You get to race through the main track in lap 1, then lap 2 takes place in the Crossworld, and then lap 3 is back on the main track with some little differences here and there. Now, while this does keep the entire race exciting and fresh, unfortunately once that initial novelty is worn off, I found myself wanting more from the Crossworlds. Locations like Kraken Bay and Dino Jungle are places I would have loved to have spent more than just one lap in. These deserve to be main tracks, but you spend such a small amount of time in them that in the end, I felt a little shortchanged. Maybe when the game is out, you'll be able to swap these around, have Dino Jungle as the main track and then Metal Harbor as your Crossworld. However, it definitely felt like these were more just short bursts of spectacle than anything else. Maybe this will be improved by the greater number of tracks and Crossworld locations in the final product, but for now, I'm already hoping for a non-Crossworld mode where I can just drive around Dino Jungle or something. That's a track I was really looking forward to and didn't feel so satisfied with in the end. And it leads me to wonder what the thought process behind the choices of what is a track and what is a Crossworld is. I'd much rather have a full stage of Kraken Bay than, say, Ocean View, which, credit where it's due, gets an original layout this time, but it's still the same damn assets we've seen in every one of these racing games. In terms of the tracks, you've got some fully original ideas here though. E-Stadium is a great starter track consisting of a massive circuit with lots of ramps for tricks, and turns for drifting. There's even a really cool shortcut in the final lap, which leads to a warp ring which cuts out part of the track, getting you ahead. I love the way this one looks with the different Sonic imagery around. The holographic Green Hill palm tree voxels are much nicer of an alternative to just using the damn level assets again. Wonder Museum was a cool course, but one that I think just needed to go a little further in terms of imagery. It's a museum of Sonic universe history, but this generally just consists of a couple of ancient statues from Sonic Frontiers, a few tornado models, an echidna statue, and some dinosaur skeletons. A museum of Sonic universe history could be filled to the brim with cool ideas, but this feels just a tad underdeveloped and maybe a bit over-curated. Rainbow Gardens seem to be a crowd favorite, and I can see why. It's a natural, lush landscape with really striking flower fields that create a rainbow look. Imagine if the Starfall Islands had looked like this. It's super pretty. Then you've got some tracks from Sonic's games as well. Let's get it out of the way. Ocean View is back again. Fortunately, they haven't just pulled a TSR and just completely pulled the track wholesale. This is a new layout and a good one at that, with that crazy loop-de-loop. Overall, this one's fine. Metal Harbor is a super popular one. I can tell they've reused some assets here and there from the Afterburner track from Transformed, and this is an example of asset reuse done right. It's transformative. This gives us a fun look at what an HD version of Metal Harbor could look like. Water Palace was my personal favorite of the bunch. They've definitely distanced it a bit from Apotos, so this is a fairly drastically redesigned version of Water Palace. But I honestly love this new take. It truly lives up to its name with its regal architecture, and my favorite part, the little underwater area with all the jellyfish. Simply gorgeous. I did notice though that on my second day of play, I could barely get any Water Palace. But that didn't stop me from getting Rainbow Garden 4 times on the jump. And I've got to wonder what causes the balancing of which tracks get chosen. When you're in a lobby, you get to select one of a selection of tracks that you want to play, and then one of the responses gets chosen, I guess. It doesn't seem to be a vote or anything like that, which I think would be actually really smart if it was. The tracks look great and function well, but I think they do buckle a bit under the weight of everything this game is trying to incorporate. Transformations are all incredibly quick this time. There's rarely a point where it feels like I'm just flying or boating for more than just a few seconds. Transform generally accounted for this by making laps significantly longer. This game here goes back to the lap length of Team Sonic Racing and the original All-Stars Racing game, meaning that all of the transformations are very tightly crammed into these laps. The result is very arcadey and chaotic. A fun part of any racing experience can be when you're simply in the lead and having fun just coasting around the track, enjoying the speed. But because this one is constantly changing transformations and tracks, you are constantly having to adapt to new challenges. The end result is incredibly stimulating, but not massively satisfying. This is only made worse by the item balancing. The item balancing in this one is fucking egregious. Everyone I've spoke to about this agrees that the item balancing became a problem. Items regenerate incredibly quickly, meaning that on most occasions, every player gets an item when passing through item capsules. But because of this, you can just end up bombarded by an absolute barrage of attacks coming from behind. And the invincibility frames do not feel adequate to really deal with that, meaning you can just kinda get pummeled. But that barely matters anyway, as the recovery time from attack items is, again, egregious. Just getting hit with a basic attack is enough to lock your steering and acceleration for just enough time for not 1, not 2, but fucking 8 players to pass you. Not only that, you lose your rings, so you're back to your base speed. And while item capsules regenerate too fast, rings don't regenerate fast enough, meaning that if you're not at the front, you're not really gonna get any damn rings. There are a lot of attack moves as well, and some of these are just obnoxious. There's the razor that cuts your car in half, once again locking your controls for even longer than the stupid base attacks. And then, okay, so historically, the Sonic All-Stars Racing games would offer players who were struggling an All-Star move to allow them a bit of a boost, to allow them to get back in the game. Well, this has been replaced with a monster truck transformation. Now the good news? Colliding with other vehicles is no longer of any consequence to you as you'll flatten them, and this can also maintain speed when off course. The bad news is that drifting is insanely unresponsive on this, making turning even more hassle than it's worth, and it doesn't really last very long either. But then there's the issue of if you're on the receiving end of one of these fuckers, because if you get squished by these, once again, your controls lock for an egregious amount of time, allowing a minimum of 8 players to pass you. And multiple people can be in monster trucks at once, so again, you can just get pummeled by multiple of these fucking things. The monster truck never gave me that good of an advantage, but it sure managed to piss me off when other people were in monster trucks. The real All-Star player here is the Drill Wisp, which serves as much more what the original All-Star moves did. Turning and acceleration become automated, you're invincible, and you can harm other players on the track. This is better than those damn monster trucks. So pair the chaos of the hyper-stimulating track layouts, the quick-paced transformations, and the crossworlds with a barrage of abysmally balanced attack items, and you've got sensory overload. Yeah, chaotic is the word for this, and while that's fine for just this global play mode, I'm going to need this game to offer me more than just luck-based bumper cars for people with ADHD. I can see the vision with Crossworlds, but it feels like 10 tons of powder in a 5-ton bag, as it constantly tries to wow you in such quick succession. I have no doubt that custom matches will help with some of this. A race with just 4 friends is going to be a lot less chaotic than 12 people from around the world, with or without bots. And I did notice that these races were a lot less frustrating when there was a mix of real players and bots. I think to accommodate for the crossworld features and the transformations, we may need to expand the track somewhat to allow more breathing room for the transformations, to allow me some time to actually get to grips with the different control philosophy of the boats, and to simply just let me enjoy flying for a bit. So that's the overall gameplay of Sonic Racing Crossworlds. In terms of vehicle types, you've got speed, acceleration, power, and handling. Handling is probably a solid choice for beginners, power is great for crowd control, acceleration has a really nice sense of drag to it, and speed feels zippy and responsive. Now another vehicle type is locked off here, which I speculate is the extreme gear, which we know is a devoted playstyle in this game. However, they didn't include it in this beta, and I guess that's a good thing. Save something for the buyers. It does make me wonder if there will be bikes in this game though, or if Shadow is just out of luck. While there are set to be 28 characters in the final release, the beta kept things to just 9. Each of these races have their own stats, meaning that each character is best paired with a specific vehicle type. However, I ignored that and paired Shadow with Amy's car, and that's something I really appreciate here. The racer customization. Any character can be paired with any vehicle, and you can buy and change vehicle parts, which once again, all have their own stats. There were preset colorways, and you could even make custom ones. Then there are the stickers too, which means that you can really personalize your own vehicle. I made a couple of different Batmobiles and what I've dubbed the Charmy-mobile. I really enjoy seeing the lobbies fill out with all these different vehicle combinations. There were some fun designs here and there, and I get the feeling that we're going to see some insane creativity coming from these vehicles once the game is out. I hope there'll be a little page where we can share our vehicles with other players. This would add a nice new dimension to the social aspect of this game. Another new feature is the Gadget system. These are just little power-ups that you can mix and match before you go onto the racetrack. You get 6 power-up slots, and some of these take up multiple slots while others just take up a single slot. But there are some of these where I'm just like, why is this not just the base playstyle? For example, fast air tricks. When you first boot up the game, the tricks feel delayed and laggy, but with fast air tricks switched on, they feel right. They feel how they should feel. There was like a little collision boost, and considering that this game is like 99% bumper cars, I don't know why you'd ever not have that enabled. These are pretty cool, I won't lie, but at the same time, I also think maybe some of these should just be the base gameplay style, especially fast tricks. The characters also get a set of emotes, not dissimilar to the expressions in Sonic Rumble. These are cute, nicely animated and voiced, and it's fun to just simply spam the negativity emote as Omega in the lobbies. There's also nice attention to detail in these lobbies, with Orbot and Cubot as well as the Eggman UFOs from Sonic Frontiers finally in action. And I guess we can talk about the presentation. It's hit and miss. There's a lot of areas where a ton of love has gone into this, from the little loading animation, to the lobby, to the menu screen. The tracks look fantastic, the art direction is strong, and the graphical fidelity only elevates that further. However, the character models aren't quite as nicely modeled as the ones in Team Sonic Racing. And while Team Sonic Racing appeared to give us an evolution of the Rio Olympic models, this one gives us more typical character models established in games like Sonic Forces and Frontiers. Although they now have the middle mouths and seem to have ditched the fur textures from Sonic Frontiers, which is a bit of a retrograde step in my opinion. It's a shame the Team Sonic Racing models never got reused, as they're genuinely really nice models, better than the modern crop in my opinion. The vehicles all look great. There are some really fun designs here, such as the Motorbug car and the Egg Drillster, and the different paint types can really be the difference between a shiny looking car or something a bit more rough looking. But then even the presentation has its weaknesses. Sonic under direct lighting looks like he's made of porcelain. He's far too glossy, and he's the only character that has this problem. The rest look fine. And while I praise the UI and menus, they are bogged down by these cheap, plastic-looking, poorly lit character renders. And I know that there is a greater discussion to be had on Sonic renders, how little love and care is usually put into these things, but they don't usually appear in the games themselves. Here they're on full display and they just look kinda crap. They look cheap and dated. Sonic and Knuckles look like dorks with their visible bottom lips. You've got Cream's render, which has no discernible light source. In-game character animations are definitely quite nice though. I love the way the quills flip around when you're revving up your engine at the start of the race. And look, Dodon Pa is finally animated, which really gave me kind of a jump scare. While on the subject of presentation, we gotta talk about the music and sound. The sound is all good, providing a good amount of feedback, but the overall mixing of it, the music is mixed so low that I couldn't really make anything out, aside from just kind of the general vibe and instrumentation, I guess. Which is uniform across all of the music that I did hear in this. You've got kind of a pop meets choir style for this one. But the choir is entirely synthetic, and that's the lead instrument, and I gotta admit, I don't like that. Synthetic choir as your lead instrument is just a bizarre decision. This is the music! This is the music in a Sonic game. What's happening here? I also won't lie, I am generally against the homogenization of Sonic music. When one game just has one overall genre and that's it. I prefer it when we get lots of different genres. It's nice and eclectic, but there's still that through line. It's hard to really say anything objective about music because it is so subjective as just an idea. When it comes to the audio, I guess one thing that I would say with some degree of objectivity is that I think they need some other takes on the voice lines when doing tricks. Either that or don't have them use these voice lines every single time. Sonic yelling "good nice jammin'" or Amy yelling "and 1 and 2 and 3" gets really, really annoying after a while.
Good night, Jim! Good night! Good night, Jim!
Maybe an option to switch these off would be good, but I'd imagine that would switch off all the other dialogue as well. And the characters do have a bit of banter between each other, which I actually like. Not enough, admittedly. Not nearly as much as there was in Team Sonic Racing. But it is there, but most of what you'll be hearing voice-wise is just good, nice, jammin'. Sonic and Amy definitely get it the worst. Most of the characters just kind of have grunts, but like, you mean to tell me you don't have more takes than that you can use? Alright, I think I've exhausted all of my overall feedback then. Overall, Sonic Racing Crossworlds is definitely shooting for the stars with how many wild ideas it can cram into a 3-minute race. Spectacle is off the charts, and I really appreciate that. I felt like I was always being kept on my toes, and while this did lead to me feeling a little shortchanged for certain formations and locations, there's definitely an angle that this can be made to work. I've heard this one described as arcadey, more so than previous Sonic Racing games, and I think that's a totally fair assessment. There's a lot here that can simply be helped with more content. If the tracks we had on this beta showcase lots of different transformations in short bursts, it would be cool to see other tracks that maybe incorporate these transformations to a greater extent. Maybe a track where we spend the majority of the time in flight. But while much of this can benefit from just more content, poor item balancing and over-penalization took things from challenging to frustrating, which definitely left a sour taste in the mouth when all was said and done. Having played the beta, I have to admit, I'm probably a little less excited for Crossworlds than I was before, as I think the areas where this could go wrong are on clear display in this beta. The overall spectacle of the Crossworlds feels like it's holding back, making it feel just kind of less exciting than it would once that initial surprise of, oh, this is a different track has worn off. You know, it'd be cool if all 3 laps were different. Like, you start on one track, you go through a ring portal, and then you fly around on that track for a bit, and you go through another ring portal, and it takes you to your final lap, which is in a completely different location. Rather than this current, very kind of predictable structure that they've gone for. I think that's the thing. If they want to go in the direction of this being this hyper-stimulating, arcadey, very quick-flowing game, then I think more than one Crossworld per level is going to be in order. Make things a bit more unpredictable. Also, this whole warping through portals thing was actually done in the first of the Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing games, in the Samba de Amigo track. Sonic Racing Crossworlds, the beta, was by no means bad. It was fun for a bit, but the novelty just wore off quicker than it should, and I'm hoping we'll just see them stack up more and more features, more and more customizations to just the overall racing experience that will allow us to keep things even fresher. Because for a game that is constantly refreshing itself with every lap, this did grow kinda tired after a while. So let's see how this shapes up. Future modes could remedy a lot of these issues, I don't rule that out. This is obviously a work in progress, and I made sure to be incredibly thorough in my feedback form. But I will admit, I'm maybe just a slight bit more hesitant towards this title than I was before. We'll see how things shape up. But what do you guys think? Did you play the beta? How did you feel about it? Do you like my review? Comment below, discuss, and as always, if you've enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below is the link to my Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to ad-free versions of these videos that you can download anywhere, exclusive content, as well as your name in the credits. A special shout out goes to the patrons in the $5 and above tier. They are Silver, Josh Strider, Grant Allen, Zach Brakowski, Twilord, Coco210, Hey, it's Classy, Ian, Joe Henshin, KB, RT0, Carlex, Hypes, Sad Goku, Dare Denny, SSS06, Kale Bennett likes Sonic Heroes more than SA1 and 2. Alright. I don't agree, but alright. King K, Mr. SP, Cirrus the Skeptic, Biotin, and Vera Wild, thank you folks so much for your generosity. And to all of you at home, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Now get out of here.